who are here at our online meet for today's roundtable discussion. Let me introduce myself first. I am Chrisley Van Santos from Bachelor of Physical Education from Bataan Peninsula State University, Orani Campus. And I am your host moderator for this exciting roundtable discussion for today. So for the rules, before we start in introduction of COVID-19, the rules during roundtable discussion are: please turn off your microphone if someone is speaking. Number 2, dress appropriately. 3, raise your hand. ra- Raise your hand if you have something to add, clarify, or if you have question. Number 4, listen carefully when someone is speaking. 5, respect others' opinions, thoughts, or point of view. And number 6, everyone will be given 3 to 5 minutes to speak. And for the introduction of COVID-19, before we start with our main agenda, I will first have an introduction of coronavirus 19 before we start in our roundtable discussion questioning. COVID-19. The coronavirus started on November 17, 2019. What exactly is the coronavirus 19 that most people call COVID-19? Coronavirus causes acute sickness in humans, marked mostly by fever and cough, and capable of developing to severe symptoms and, in some cases, death. It is most common. It is most common among the elderly and those who have underlying health issues or what we call comorbidity. It was first discovered in China in 2019 and was declared a pandemic in 2020. There were many difficulties during the pandemic. Because of this, many businesses, buildings closed as well as many schools, and the life of every individual became hard. It has become more difficult for each individual to act in a community because of safety protocols that an individual must follow so as to be able to prevent infection. One One of the most affected by coronavirus 19 is education. Ma- Many have changed the education system amidst the COVID pandemic, such as in teaching student. To teach student, still need online discussion using online discussion tools such as Google Meet, Zoom, and many more, which are innovative for teacher and students. Even, even, Even so, we have struggled to overcome the challenges of this pandemic until we are accustomed to today's education system. Another of the effects of COVID-19 is our daily exercise, as the government often does not allow people to leave their home and thus avoid the deadly COVID-19. Deadly COVID-19, and many sports competition in events have been postponed because of this pandemic. Just like the Klaraa, Palarong Pambansa, and even the Olympics have been postponed and not held on the date allotted for it. Even though even though this is what we are experiencing in the pandemic, many people are still working on ways to survive during the pandemic. Just like Miss Heidelin Diaz, which is where she has made a way to be able to train, even without proper equipment. Even if the equipment is just substitute for the weights she lifts, even if his path is hard because of COVID-19, he was able to survive, and also because of his hard work, he achieved the gold medal because she didn't surrender in the obstacle that she faced that time. It just shows that even though it is difficult for us to go through this pandemic, we must find a way so that we can survive this pandemic. To solve the problems we face, look at the positive side of the negative thing. The same thing I see in our area, which is Bataan, where that even though we are in pandemic, the people in our area, based on what I see on daily basis, are They are working on ways to be able to survive even if it is difficult in our time now. Even though this is what we are going through, we can still see the help of people in the place where I grew up. So after the introduction of COVID-19 pandemic, here is the introduction of the fourth sector. Before we start in the discussion, these are the four sector representative. For the legal sector, may I call on Mr. Julius Vincent Mallari? Please introduce yourself.
Good day, everyone. I'm Julius Vincent Mallari from the legal sector, and I'm glad to be a part of this online roundtable discussion.
For the education sector, can I call on Ms. Cherlyn from Fatalla, Landagan? Please
Good day,
introduce yourself.
everyone. I am Cherlyn of Landagan, a second-year student, and I am taking a Bachelor of Physical Education, and I am the representative for educational sector.
Okay. For the international and global sector, may I call on Mr. Bryan Manalang? Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Pleasant day to all. I am Bryan Manalang, a second-year student, and I'm currently taking the course of Bachelor of Physical Education at Bataan Peninsula State University. I will be your representative for the international global sector.
So, for the practitioner sector, Mr. Jeryco Gabriel Dela Crus, please introduce yourself.
A pleasant afternoon to each and everyone. I am Jeryco Gabriel M. de la Cruz and representative for the practitioner sector endeavoring the role of physical education in this time of pandemic.
So that we are now end with the introduction of for representative of four sector. Let's proceed to discussion. For question number 1, what are the observation, practices, causes, and risk factors for the roles of physical education in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic among Bataeños? May we request the representative of legal sector to share their point of view regarding to the question presented to the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chrisley Santos. Physical education is very important. Our lives, it gives us knowledge and benefits to improve ourselves in this pandemic. Physical education and sport are also affected. We all know that physical education and sport require physical contact to learn it properly. Some of the legal factors affecting physical education and sport that are usually observed and the challenge facing limited contact, social interaction, limited equipment and resources, limited knowledge of the parents to guide their student at the home, and also implementing of the guidelines and protocols of local government unit of LGU of Bataan to avoid the spread of COVID-19. So that we need to know the rules of physical education in this time of pandemic. Addressing that there are different rules that we can know and see this time. The rules of physical education in this time is very important. The practice of regular physical exercise, which may minimize the emerge of the problems that directly affect people behavior, should be encouraged during social isolation in the pandemic period. It's the one of the rules of PE. Physical education teacher should consider the essential health professional during this pandemic because it can guide and motivate individuals and students to practice physical activity in order to keep and improve their health. So that we can know the role of PE in this time of pandemic is very important to all of us.
Thank you for your answer. We really learned a lot about your opinion about question number 1. So for the representative of education sector, what are your thoughts about question number 1?
So, in terms of education, the COVID-19 outbreak has resulted in significant decreases in PE requirements and physical activity time. Teachers and students' difficulties were observed in both closed and open schools. So many Bataeño students benefit from physical education classes because they encourage them to be more active and develop healthy habits. However, when all of schools in Bataan, not only in Bataan, but in whole country, also officially closed because of coronavirus, these classes were among the most difficult to convert to an online format due to space, weather, social distance, and other constraints that a physical education teachers of Bataan continue to be limited in what they can do in person and with students learning from home. Physical education programs are essential for many students in remaining active and develop healthy habits. For Bataeños, physical education sessions are an important part of their education.
Okay, thank you for giving your thoughts about question number 1. Can I ask, do we have a question or reaction about the thoughts of the education sector? Okay, if none, let's proceed to international and global sector. For the representative of international global sector, can you please share your ideas about the questions that are presented in the screen?
So, what are the common observation, practices, causes, risk factors sa physical education and sports in a school setting and challenges and issues amidst COVID-19 among Bateños? So, for the international global, COVID-19 has led to the closure of gymnasiums, stadiums, swimming pools, dance and workout studios. So, nandiyan yung mga therapy clinics, parks, and playgrounds all around the globe. So, as a result of this, many people are unable to engage in their regular individual or group physical activities outside of their homes. So many people become less physically active and spend more time on electronics, have inconsistent sleep, and eat poorer diets as a result of these factors, leading to weight increase and loss of physical fitness. So as the common observation amid sa COVID-19 pandemic among Bataeños is the lack of exercise and access to physical education that can lead to mental health issues like stress and anxiety that many people will feel as a result of being cut off from the normal social life. So the possibility of losing relatives or friends as the result of the virus as well as the illnesses influence on one's economic well-being and access to nourishment will compound these consequences. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for giving your thoughts and knowledge and ideas about question number 1. Thank you, Mr. Jim Bryan, for sharing your ideas about question number 1. Is there any question, guys? Okay, if none, let's proceed to the next representative, which is practitioner sector. May we request the representative of practitioner sector to share their point of view regarding to question presented to the screen?
Thank you, Mr. Chrisley Van. A lot of risk factors for the roles of physical education in this time of pandemic among Bateños may be called critical roles. Many students are having a hard time in the new normal education system where there are only chosen courses that are approved to have limited classes and they need to practice social distancing, so still having physical activity is not like before. While some students have no other choice but to adapt to an online setting. Many students, especially those kids that have limited resources, are the most difficult during COVID-19 pandemic. But still, teachers and students make their best effort to adjust and still cooperate. Teachers are requiring students to attend webinars that explain the importance of physical education and at this time. Schools are assigned a set of webinar speakers to share their experience and knowledge. Because online classes are continuing despite the pandemic, it is understandable that sometimes signals and internet connection are the main problem. Since it also rains in the Bataan, some students are teachers cannot share their knowledge and teach well when there are times of when are there times that connection is lost. And I think that is the one problem and risk factors affecting the roles of physical education in this time of pandemic. Space, weather, and the social distancing that brought about these viruses is really affecting the way of teaching physical education among the student. But there are also ways to learn at home. My observation is that many Bataeños do physical activities with the help of online apps where they can watch and also learn at the same time on their own. Thank you po.
Thank you for sharing your different ideas and knowledge about the questions that are presented. We gain different knowledge that you share to us. Are there question, clarification, or you need to add, guys? Ma'am, sir? So, okay, if none, let's proceed to question number 2. So, for the question number 2, what are the regulating and statutory policies and guidelines that examine social and economic determinants and related health outcomes of the roles of PE of Bataeños? Uh, may we request the representative of legal sector to share their point of view regarding to the question presented to the screen?
Thank you, Mr. Santos. The Commission of Higher Education create regulation and guidelines of the implementation of flexible learning to guide and protect the student from the threat of COVID and to continue the learning of student through flexible learning. The Memorandum Order Number 4, Series 2020 is regulation that assists the institution in transition to flexible learning, avoid and limited risk of spreading of viruses. In academic institution, this will be an alternative way to cope up in this time of pandemic, wherein we cannot go outside and on typical way of classroom setup. COVID-19 become a huge challenge to all of us, especially to those who are not really familiar with the online class setup. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, we should also consider the importance of the mental health of each other. So it's very important to think on how we can apply the PE and sport in our life so that we can cope with our mental health. Everyone should be give importance to PE and sport and should know the role of this in the lives and how PE and sport help us, especially in this time when everyone is experiencing difficulties.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vincent Mallari. Do we have a question or action about the thoughts of the legal sector? Okay, if none, let's proceed to education sector. For the representative of education sector, what are your thoughts about the question number 2?
Thank you, Sir Santos. So, the COVID-19 pandemic is an extraordinary circumstances all over the world. In terms of education, specifically in Bataan, extensive social distancing policies are put in place. So, restricting teachers and students to go to school and doing outdoors activity to stay safe and stay at home. This, of course, means that the majority of the PE class will spend the majority of their time at home. Okay na po.
Okay po. Thank you, Ms. Cherlyn Landagan, for sharing your ideas about question number 2. Is there any question before we proceed? Okay, if none, let's proceed to the next representative, which is international and global sector. For the representative of international global sector, may I call Mr. Jim Manalang?
Thank you, Mr. Santos. No? So, for the question number 2, as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread and the people are forced to stay at home, some policies are implemented like using face masks, social distancing, and staying at home, and etc. So, and because of this, no, many people all around the globe tend to be less physically active. So, there are concerns that in the event of pandemic, a lack of access to irregular exercise routines pose a threat to our immune system, physical and mental health, and having a sedentary behavior. So therefore, the World Health Organization advises and gives some guidelines of 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise, of 75 minutes of vigorous intensity exercise per week. So the effect of such regular exercise have been demonstrated to be quite beneficial, particularly during times of this anxiety, crisis, and stress. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jim Bryan, for your wonderful answer. Do you have a question or reaction about or thoughts of the international global sector, guys? Is there any question? Okay, I think none. Let's proceed to the representative of practitioner sector. May we request the representative of practitioner sector to share their point of view regarding to the question presented to the screen.
Again, thank you, Mr. Santos. Amidst the pandemic COVID-19, our lives changed a lot, most especially to us as a student. There is a memorandum that Bataan will only have online classes. A lot of policies and guidelines are affecting physical education. Authorities of Bataan are engaging people to have COVID-19 vaccination. Some infrastructure that are open with limited persons are required to present vaccination cards to enter the establishment. People are needed to wear face masks, sanitizer or alcohol and practice social distancing when in public places. Since, since it is not allowed to go to the gym or other places that can be used to perform Zumba or any physical activity, people in Bataan are now having a hard time being physical active. This will cause a lot of problems within the immune system and also affect those people who are at least on having anxiety. We all know that physical activity saves a lot of problems in our body and brain. Therefore, it must be done regularly. That is why, despite the situation we are facing, we are encouraged to still do physical activity at home.
Okay, thank you everyone for sharing your ideas and ideas, knowledge, and point of view regarding about the questions. We gain different knowledge that you shared to us. Is there any question, clarification, or you need to add to your answer, guys? Okay, if none, let's proceed to question number three. For question number 3, what platforms, best practices, interventions, mechanism to identify health and socioeconomic consequences of the role of PE in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic? May we request the representative of legal sector to share their point of view regarding to the question presented to the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. In today's technology, there is a lot and effective ways and platform to continue the learning of physical education. Despite poor academic preparation, I think one of the most essential and alternative modes of learning is using learning portals like Google Classroom. We all know that there is a lot of students have difficult to attend virtual classes. So by this learning portal, they can track lesson give by their instruction. The role of physical education and sport in this time of pandemic is to emphasize the capability of students to how they can build their knowledge and to how they will cope up. The platforms like Google Classroom and Google Meet are very important in this time of pandemic because we are in the time that everyone is not able to go outside. So the online platforms will be each other mode of communication in teaching and learning, physical education and sports.
Okay, thank you for your answer, Mr. Julius Vincent Mallari. Okay. For the representative of education sector, what are your thoughts about question number 3?
So, physical education instructors in Bataan should understand the importance of creating meaningful and enjoyable activities to encourage students to live an active lifestyle as one of the best practices to identify health and socioeconomic in the roles of PE in the midst of COVID. So, teachers should encourage students to go on bike rides, jogs, walks, or engage in any other physical activity that can be done safely outside. So instructors on the other hand had to adapt and implement creative opportunities for students during online learning. Some instructors should create workouts that can be performed safely indoors using common household items. But in the other hand, um, students in Bataan should also participate properly to the online class and do their part as a learner students. They must know their responsibilities in doing their part in this tragic situation amidst this pandemic that causing complications in terms of our education. In participating different activities in PE, which is given by the instructors and teachers, is one of the best practices that a student can contribute. We all know that this day it is not uh, much way strict as before when COVID-19 was new, but following the rules and regulations in doing the given outdoors activities such as wearing face masks, following the social distancing rules is very important.
Okay. Thank you for giving your knowledge and point of view about COVID-19, Ma'am Cherlyn Landagan. Do we have question or reaction about thoughts of the education sector? Okay, if none, let's proceed to international global sector. For the representative of international global sector, can you please share your ideas about the questions that are presented in the screen?
So again, thank you, Mr. Santos. For the question number 3, what are the platforms? While the coronavirus pandemic has disrupted traditional physical education, people globally should remain active, which is more important during the pandemic as people are likely to be more sedentary during this situation. So government should work to support physical education and a healthy lifestyle for their community. So people needs physical education now more than ever. Thank you.
Okay, your thoughts that give us to us is so informative. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and ideas to us. But before we proceed, is there any question, ma'am, sir? Okay, I think there is no question. So let's proceed to the representative of practitioner sector. May we request the representative of practitioner sector to share their point of view regarding the question presented to the screen.
Again, thank you, Mr. Santos. COVID-19 causes socioeconomic impacts such as income loss, business impact, and health concern. Authorities and health experts are doing their best to engage people by posting it to their website to exercise daily, eat nutrients, food, and avoid crowded places. They warn people to always put on or wear face masks. They also give information about the number of sick in every municipality. I think that having social platforms is a big help in maintaining the tally of people with sickness. Since some of us are always on our phones, watching news, attending classes through phones, for me it is easier to see what happens during this time since in on one click you can see a lot of information and implemented guidelines since they are always update on their social media platforms. But I also observed that some areas, including those native people, are also affected, especially that some of them are not familiar with the use of social media or their place does not have signal. For that, I think the government should also focus on warning them by assigning people to check on them and to explain to them that the importance of physical education in this time of pandemic information and videos doing physical activity that will help all.
Okay, thank you everyone for your thoughts you shared to us and your knowledge. We gained different ideas about the question number 3. Is there any question or you need to add your answers, ma'am and sir? Is there any? Okay, if none, let's proceed to the fourth question. So for the fourth question, share present propose and explain holistic and integrative approach to prevent on a national and global scale. May we request the representative of legal sector to share their point of view regarding to the question presented to the screen.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. I believe that students have different difficulties in life. Some students are not capable to support their education in this time of pandemic, or some these students are still struggling in transition online. I think the best approach or the best way here is don't depend on the student at this situation or know your role. In this time, also the role of your student. We should motivate and encourage ourselves and the student in coping up in the teaching and learning in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay. Your thoughts that gave to us is so informative. Thank you for your knowledge and ideas to that you gave to us. But before we proceed, is there any question? So if none, the next is representative of education sector. For the representative education sector, may I call on Miss Cherlyn Landagan?
Thank you, Sir Santos. Uh, the purpose of this is to develop children's cognitive capacity in terms of knowledge acquisition in academic disciplines. So this goals necessitates a learning environment in which suited learning behavior is regarded as appropriate and effective and is rewarded. So physical education is the only opportunity for all children to learn about physical movement and engage in physical activity as part of their education. So as previously stated, its goal and place in institutionalized education have shifted from teaching hygiene and health to educating children about the various forms and benefits of physical movement such as sports and exercise. Although many things appear to be beyond our control at the moment, we do have the ability to be creative and to incorporate physical activity and exercise into each of our days. We may even look back on this difficult period as watershed moment when we discovered new ways to strengthen our emotionally resilience and physically health.
Okay, thank you, Miss Cherlyn Landagan, for your answer. Do we have a question or reaction about the answer of education sector? I think there is no question. So let's proceed to the international and global sector. For the representative of international and global sector, can you please share your ideas about the question that are presented in the screen?
So thank you, Mr. Santos. COVID-19 is the first epidemic of this magnitude in our generation, compelling countries throughout the world to take urgent measures. So, with about a third of the world's population on lockdown, the world's lack of readiness and for a crisis like this is clear. So, while experts warn that global health crisis will repeat, so a general preparation strategy must be implemented not only on a global but also in regional level, particularly in places where the health system is inadequate or non-existent. So physical activity and exercise have been shown to be beneficial to all people around the globe. People are designed to move, and most of our body systems function properly when we're extremely active on a regular basis. So this will also assist individuals in being prepared, particularly in the event of a pandemic, to be more physically fit and healthy.
Thank you, Sir Jim Bryan Manalang, for sharing your ideas and thoughts about the international and global sector. So for the next, can I call on the representative of the practitioner sector and answer the question that are presented to the screen? Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Santos. COVID-19 viruses are causing a global pandemic. Health personnel are approaching people to more appropriate strategies in controlling the ongoing coronavirus disease. They explain to people and enlighten what benefits they might get if they also help in making a healthy approach in fighting against COVID-19 and prevent spreading the virus around the world. I think some countries are closing and banning other people from entering. In this case, it might help a country to lessen the possibility of getting a new COVID variant that can cause a lot of destruction and cause devastating problems. Also, some countries are helping other countries by sending vaccines, medicines, and medical equipment that can be used to cure and maintain the population of people with sickness.
Okay, sir. Thank you for sharing your ideas about the last question. We get different knowledge that you share to us. Is there any question that you need to add or clarification about the last question, guys? Okay. I think there is no question. So let's proceed to the advocacy. If you have no queries or question, let's proceed to our advocacy or educational campaign that are promoting mental health and physical education, and everyone should give their thoughts about their advocacy. After they after they will give their hashtags regarding mental health and physical education. So for the start, let's start with the representative of legal sector to be followed by the representative of educational sector. Next is representative of global and international sector, and the next is representative of practitioner sector. So Mr. Vincent, Julius Vincent, you can start.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. My advocacy is physical fit and for the better life. I just doing regular exercise and physical activity, promote strong muscle and bones and improve respiratory, cardiovascular health and overall health. Staying active can also help you to maintain a healthy, strong immune system and fight different types of disease. So what are we waiting for? Let's go and physical fit for our healthy health.
Okay, the next is representative of educational sector.
So my advocacy is PE Move, Learn, and Grow. So it is important that we as future physical educators advocate for our great subject, and there is no better way than to display a bold and positive message about how PE helps us move, learn, and grow. So quality physical education is an important and necessary component for educating the whole child. So we as a future physical educators know that PE is crucial for individuals to become physically literate. Physical education can be the first step for our students to leading a healthy lifestyle, which will carry into their adult years. So spread the word. Physical education helps you move, learn, and grow. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cherlyn Landagan. So for global international sector, may I call on Mr. Bryan Manalang.
So, for international global sector, my hashtag is PE is a big deal. So, as we all know, no, we are all dealing with added stress as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic spread, and its potential to endanger our own health, our families, and our community's health. So, please consider doing everyday physical activity and exercise as a technique to keep our health in check during this stressful time. Thank you.
And so for the next is the representative of practitioner sector. May I call on Mr. Jeryco Gabriel de la Cruz?
For the practitioner sector, my advocacy is strive for the new normal. Again, again, I would like to say that despite of this pandemic, our dream continues no matter what challenge come in our lives. We must be strong and stable because in the future, we will also achieve the desire of success.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jeryco Gabriel. And last for my advocacy is Wait lang po. Is and last for my advocacy is mentally fit and physically fit for eternal life. Because being mentally fit and physically fit will be our bridge to survive and overcome this pandemic. Where pandemic that we are experiencing today. Being physically fit will fight any disease that may befall us, and being mentally fit will fight the anxiety, stress, and depression caused by this pandemic. And because of being mentally fit, we can look at negative things in positive side. So this is my hashtag for our advocacy. Okay. Okay, but before we end this online roundtable discussion, can we open our cam and we will have our photo opportunity with our hashtag. Mr. Vincent, can you capture? Can you take a picture of us?
1, 2, 3, smile. Ay na.
So to further close this online discussion, first let me call on Mr. Julius Vincent Mallari for closing, followed by Ms. Cherlyn Landagan, Mr. Bryan Manalang, and lastly, Mr. Jeryco Gabriel. First, let me call Mr. Julius Vincent Mallari.
Thank you, Mr. Santos, for the closing. Thank you to everyone I joined in the extraordinary online roundtable discussion. Because these activities, I learned more about physical education and sport that will help me as a student or future physical educator to be more aware of its benefits and importance that will help us. Thank you.
Miss Cherlyn Landagan.
So, we all know that this table discussion is very crucial for us as a future educator, and I hope all of us learned a lot with this session. So, thank you very much for my co-sectors and especially for our moderator. It is great speaking with you all, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Bryan Manalang.
Thank you everyone. No? Thank you for our moderator, Mr. Santos, and to my co-sectors, Mr. Julius Vincent Mallari, Ms. Cherlyn Landagan, and Mr. Jeryco Gabriel. And thank you for this opportunity to be speak with you and address the issue about the COVID pandemic here in Bataan. Yun lang. Thank you.
May I call on Mr. Jeryco Gabriel de la Cruz.
I congratulate everyone for the success of this activity. I hope all of us learn a lot from this activity. Thank you for our moderator, Sir Chrisley Van Santos, and for my co-sector, Julius Vincent Mariari, and for the co-sector again, Mr. Bryan Manalang and Miss Cherlyn Landagan. Thank you all and have a nice day.
And also, I would like to thank every representative that are here in online meet. The representative of legal sector, Vincent Mallari, Mr. Vincent Mallari, for educational sector, Ms. Cherlyn Landagan, for international and global sector, Mr. Bryan Manalang, and for the practitioner sector, Mr. Jeryco Gabriel, for providing their knowledge, point of view, thoughts, and their ideas in this online roundtable. Again, thank you everyone for joining this online roundtable. Have a pleasant day to every one of you. This is where our online roundtable ends. Stay safe with all of us. Thank you.